Happy 2024. Yes. Keys. Big K and the Back Talk brothers. Welcome, man. How are you doing? How was your new year?
Hey, Dan. It seems like it was just yesterday, actually.
All right. The Chiefs are the AFC West champions. All is right in the world. The good guys are back on top of the AFC West. I'm excited about that. Let's start off with this here. Let's start off with a good thing here. Let's start off with the Chiefs here. How excited were you about? Not only did we knock the Bengals out of the playoffs, we also knocked the Broncos. It was like a great twofer there.
Absolutely.
It was a great feeling. Hatter's House 710. I guess we're going to just start right away. Hatter's House 710. Go Lions. That referee is a punk for placing blame on the players. Keys, you know what? Let's just kind of start off with this here. Saturday, one of the more bizarre incidents in the NFL, a two-point conversion, a successful two-point conversion, was called back due to a player not reporting eligible. Different variations on that story. They go for it again on the 8-yard line, but Micah Parsons was offside, so they go for it again and fail. Just open forum here, open rant here. Give me your thoughts.
Hey, listen, I am with Lions fans on this one. I've seen the replay of that about 70 times now. I've listened to I think both Mitch Schwartz and Jeff Schwartz talk about this, obviously former offensive linemen who understand both what goes into these, when they're doing the install, what goes into it pregame. And so, I mean, I think it's pretty clear from the video that was it whoever it was, whoever 70 is, sorry guys, whoever 70 was, he comes into the picture late. Like, it's not even close, right? When 68 and who was it? Panay Sewell, who was with him, 68. They both walk up to the ref, right? It's not even close. They're up to the ref. 70 is still, 10, 15 yards back? When they talk to him, he looks at them and he walks off. And listen, I have no reason to believe that Dan Campbell is lying when he said that he talked about this play with the refs pregame. Hey, listen, new thing for me to learn was that every team had, for their trick plays or whatever, they go over it with the refs pregame, so the refs aren't caught off guard by this. So I'm with Lions fans on this. It's absolutely stupid, and I don't see how an NFL referee or even anybody in the NFL head office home office can condone this, because right now every fan says about how shady the NFL referees are, and making that connection between gambling and refs sure looks true today. And so, hey, listen, I'm with Lions fans. I don't think there's any way that you can excuse this. And maybe the whole Kadarius Toney lining up offsides thing is still fresh in my mind and in my heart right now. But I mean, I don't know. It's almost like the ref had in his mind that, 70's been the one who's been reporting eligible all game. That's who it is, and just screwed it up. I guess on the flip side, they announced it, as number 70 was reporting eligible, and you could clearly hear that audio. So, at the same time, if you're Dan Campbell, don't you say something? Don't you? I mean, I don't know.
Well, let me ask you this here. This is kind of my opinion, and One Pride 40 brought this up right here. This is a great comment. Campbell might have lost his cool and was really angry about that, but he says you play to win. You play to win the game, quoting Herm Edwards, longtime great coach.
Who never played to win the game.
I say great coach kind of sarcastically because I love Herm Edwards with a passion, but there are so many other head coaches that I liked.
Hey, Mark Davis. Hey, Spanos. There you go, Herm Edwards.
Every one of them. I did not want Herm to be my head coach, but I love listening to him talk. One of the things that I always felt, and this goes all the way back to week one, and so this is kind of a question I'm throwing out at you, Keys. Normally, if you come on my show, I don't throw you curveballs like this. I'm throwing Keys a curveball. I personally think that when a team runs trick plays and they run a lot of them and they go for it on fourth down, I think it's because you usually don't feel like you're good enough to beat the team head to head. So go back to week one. The Lions went for it on fourth down at their own 35. They had a few other trick plays, a few gadget plays. I thought that was acceptable because you're going against the Super Bowl winner on the road. I didn't like that against Dallas because when I watched Dallas play Detroit, I really felt like Detroit looked like the better team. I think that when you do these trick plays, you're saying we're not good enough to win on your own. I want to get your thoughts on that.
I guess I would say when Tom Brady was deflating footballs, was it because he didn't feel that he was good enough to win without deflating footballs? I think it's just, I don't think it really has anything to do with that. Maybe sometimes it does, but I think it's more of a matter of, hey, listen, we're not going to leave it to chance, right? Like that play call in and of itself, just to go for it in that moment, right? That is a high leverage situation. It's like you're not holding out any stops at that point, right? Because this play is the game, one way or the other. So I don't think it matters whether you think you're better or not. You're in a very compressed amount of field. Dallas is still really good, but I think it's just, hey, listen, we want to make sure we're going with what we feel is our absolutely best chance to score here. And it just happened to be that play, right? I think that's all it is.
No, I just think that if that's your best play, a trick play, instead of just lining up and pounding it or running your best play, that usually indicates, hey, we don't think we're good enough to win in overtime. That was kind of my take on it, that, hey, we're scared to play Dallas in overtime. We need to do what we can to win it here. Am I wrong here? Because I see a comment in the chat here is telling me I'm wrong.
I could see it that way, but I could also see it in the way of simply, this is you control what you control, right? And so you can control right now whether you win this game or not. Put it in your offense's hands. Don't leave anything up to chance, right? And especially in today's NFL, don't leave anything up to a ref's chance. Because all it takes is a pass interference ball, and everybody knows what I'm talking about, right?
Everybody should.
So yeah, I would understand both sides of the argument, but I think it's just as plausible that he just wanted to have as much control as possible, and that's just going for two right there.
That's an interesting take, and I hope I get some feedback on this here. Hattersouth 710 says, I accept the loss, no excuses. Both teams left plays on the field. This wasn't a judgment call. This is a procedure thing, and they screwed it up. I just want them to accept responsibility. Every team has one. So, by the way, I was fully aware about this. The first time I heard about this goes all the way back, and I forget the Super Bowl, but the Saints versus Colts. What happened to Sean Payton? There's a clip of Sean Payton going up to the referee, and he says, hey, look, we're going to kick an onside kick. the first time we kick off. Either if we win the coin toss in the first half or if we defer, we're going to kick it, and we're going to kick it towards our side. So every NFL team has a procedure of how they go to the referees and tells them about it. I found out, I don't know that Super Bowl off the top of my head. And by the way, One Pride 40, I sent him the clip. That same referee crew is going to announce Pittsburgh-Baltimore the first Saturday game. The Lions had 2 timeouts, and what can they say? That's where the rest can huddle after the play and get it right. Also, Decker's supposed to jump up and down and say, I'm the one eligible, not 70. I believe the way it is that what you do is you rub your hands like this, and you make a motion to the referees. That's the way that I've always determined it. But Hatters House 7-0 says, I disagree because the Lions use trick plays against everyone. Bottom line, if you think you're better, I want to read off some comments. Hatter's House. I'm going to circle back to this because I want to read some comments, and I also have a pitch count on Keys. I can't just keep him here as long as I like. So Keys is only here for a limited amount of time. I'm going to touch base on this. Oh, look at this. We have the talent. The B and the Back Talk brothers, the great one, Gooch. And he says, well. As far as the Lions not wanting to go to OT, it's simple matter of them not wanting to risk injury, moving up to the 1 seed. Keys, what's your take on this, man? You just saying that you thought the best chance to win was that 2-point play? Or, I mean, after you missed the first time and you got backed up, to me, it's a no-brainer. You kick and you go into overtime. I disagree with this logic here. I think that the Lions there's a poker phrase called going on tilt. For those of you who are not familiar with this phrase is that, for example, if you get a pair of aces and you go heads up with somebody who's got a pair of threes and the pair of threes ends up beating the pair of aces, you get mad and you play a little off, and that's called going on tilt. I think Dan Campbell went on tilt, and I think he made a huge mistake. Keys, what's your thoughts here? Of course, you're going to agree with me.
Well, I think there's 2 or 3 different points there in what you just said. Going back to what Hatter said, though, I think what he was trying to say was when it got announced that 70 was the one who was eligible over the PA and to everyone, what was Decker supposed to, what was he supposed to do in response to that? I think that's what Hatter was saying. But I understand what you're saying, Dan. I think going for it 3 times in a row is really risky in that situation because, how many of your best plays for that moment do you have, and do you really want to waste all the bullets there? But I do think there is some merit to that. I was looking at it from the matter of control, right? It's like all or nothing at this point. I don't know as much about poker as you do, but I know at some point, as your hand starts to dwindle down, you have to push them all in. You have to push your chips all in and go for it. But I do think that has merit. We saw the Dolphins lose Bradley Chubb. Like how much is that going to hurt them moving forward now? I remember after the 13-second game, and all the crying over overtime, even though the Bills owner voted against it, after 2018 when the Chiefs lost that same way. And I remember, and Gooch is in the chat here, I remember the two of us, kind of having this talk. Gooch kept bringing up, that whole thing. You keep talking about player safety, right? And yet you keep extending overtime, which was kind of my argument. Sudden death used to be, right? Your sudden death is the last 2 minutes of the fourth quarter. Mm-hmm. And then we said, oh, that's not good enough. We can't have ties. So we have to have overtime. And then sudden death in overtime wasn't good enough. Well, it's not fair that one team can have the first possession, and it all comes down to the coin flip. And it's like, where is it going to stop? Like eventually we're just going to keep adding and adding to overtime. So even if the first team scores a touchdown, the second team, can go down and they still get a chance. But we're just going to keep building on to overtime. And I'm going on this tangent here because, as Gooch kept pointing out, we keep talking about player safety, yet we're adding more time to the game here, right? So I think it has merit because of that. I do think the injury part of it does have merit.
Let me throw out another curveball here for you. Hatters House 710 says the thing is most NFL games are one-score games, so the refs will always be involved. And Keys here I wish Keys was here all night. So I'm working it out with Keys, but we got Keys on limited. So Keys, even though I got you on limited count, I'm going to throw you a complete curveball. Did you get a chance to watch the national championship? I'm bringing this up. I'm sorry, Gooch. If you didn't get a chance to watch it, Michigan played Alabama, and the game went into overtime. Did you get a chance to watch it?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Are you familiar with the college overtime rules?
It's been a few years, so if they've changed them in the last
few
years.
The Alabama-Michigan game went into overtime.
Right.
And if you're not familiar with it, each team gets the ball on the 25-yard line, 25 yards to go. And if the first team scores, then the other team. Would you prefer that in the NFL?
I like having all three phases of the team involved in overtime. So I want to see kickoffs and kick returns and punts and punt returns as part of it. So, for me, that's kind of how I feel about it.
I'm with you. I think college overtime is one of the dumbest things I've ever seen. One of the most exciting games I've ever attended. Monday night in overtime to Mark Vanover. It was 95. Returns an 86-yard punt for a touchdown. A game that it was kind of a defensive struggle. The Chargers actually outplayed the Chiefs, but thanks to a punt return, the Chiefs win in overtime. One Pride says if he prevents the Steelers from going to the playoffs, Brad Allen, his public enemy, number one for numerous. Got to remember he screwed over your Chiefs. By the way, One Pride, I'm a little disappointed you Lions fans were not this upset over the Kadarius Toney offsides play. I'm just saying, you where was the outrage? I'm teasing. I get it, but he says I believe this creates a massive storyline for the NFL. If you wanted to go to OT, here's the things, Hatters House 710. You should have gone into overtime. I think that was a move out of desperation. And to me, it's funny because I was chatting with One Pride and he says, well, we were playing to win. I'm like, it more like seems like you were getting desperate. That was my take on it, is that if you guys were the better team out there, why not take them into an extra period? To me, it seems like the longer you play the game, the better. I think it was better than 50-50 you beat Dallas going into overtime. That's kind of my point. But yeah. And by the way, yeah, it has created a massive storyline. And by the way, if you're a conspiracy theorist, it looks like it's going to be Detroit with the 3 seed, Rams with the 6 seed. And I'll be honest with you, yeah. Hatters House 710 says we all know the Lions will whoop it. That's my whole point. I think you would have beaten them in overtime. I really do. Keys, am I wrong here? When you watch this game, were you seeing the same thing I was seeing? Because I was really shocked that the Lions were the better team Saturday against the Cowboys. I was expecting a lot of different things. The trick plays I knew were going to come, the fake punts, looking at Dan Campbell. I was really surprised about that. Are you seeing the same thing I'm saying, or are we just pandering here to Lions fans?
I thought it was going to be close. What kind of surprised me was, if I recall correctly, Dallas couldn't run the ball. And that's kind of what surprised me more than anything. And so, yeah, I mean, I thought it was going to be close. You had, last week in the chat or whatever, whenever it was, some deranged fan that said it was going to be like 60-20 Dallas. And I kept saying that's not going to happen. It's simply not going to happen. But yeah, I mean, one way or another, we got a good game. It would just be nice to have a game that's not draped in controversy. But I'm glad it's not my team, because every time we point it out, we get crap excuses and stuff thrown at us by the NFL and fans. So
yeah, exactly. And that was something that, it's funny, because before the season started, I was trying to tell Chiefs fans that, hey, look, we get the calls that Brady used to get. We get the calls Manning used to get. We're going to get the benefit of the doubt. I didn't see that this year at all. And there's a lot of fan bases that were posting stuff on social media about Patrick Mahomes kissing a ref. I don't know if you saw it too, but I saw something from New England fans. I'm like, you know what? 30 other fan bases, I could see that, but not Patriots fans. But yeah, I really didn't feel. I think that there is some inconsistency. It's something I think that will be addressed, but I don't know what changes are going to be made. Gooch says no, because if both score, then it goes to 2-point conversions. Then you can condense all those bodies into a shorter area, more chance for injuries. Yeah, I'm not a fan of college overtime at all. I really wish that's one thing I just absolutely hate. Years ago, as a matter of fact, college football games used to end in a tie. And that was kind of a big thing that changed with you know what? I'll condense this here. I'm going on a rant, but NFL, the NFL did give the Lions bulletin board material. Do you agree? Keys, what is your thoughts on this?
I don't know. And I don't know if you even do the Lions need bulletin board material? I think Dan Campbell himself is all the hype and energy and focus that they need. So
yeah, I agree completely. I think at this point in the season, you don't really need bulletin board material. I'll be honest. I think that when you guys play the Rams, that's just going to be very exciting, and I fully expect that. Hutch played phenomenal. 2 sacks. I was really shocked because I really was expecting. When you guys played Kansas City, I had no doubt the Chiefs were the better team. Just you guys brought a better game. The fake punt, going for it on 4th down. I didn't see that against Dallas. You guys looked like you were the better team, and I really didn't expect that at all. Lions have been really good against the run all season. I still thought Dallas you have to understand, Dallas has been winning by an average score of like 25 points a game at home. They've been insane all year. They've been blowing teams out. I mean, they're winning by over 3 touchdowns a game. I thought that it would be good for Dallas or good for Detroit if they kept it under 10. I think I predicted 34-23. So for them to go down to Dallas where they've been unstoppable, I think is huge. So if Barnes gets that safety, Lions, I don't know about that. But I will touch base on this a little later here. Packers loss had a lot of controversy. Yeah, there's been it's funny if you're a Vikings fan. I know the Vikings complained a lot when the Chiefs beat them. Of course, we had some issues with the Bills and the Packers. So yeah. Did you see the video the NFL released showing the referees how to recognize who is eligible? Keys, did you see this?
Nope.
I didn't see it either. He had 3. Okay, I thought he had 2 sacks. The way I've never seen multiple, to the best of my knowledge, I've never seen multiple offensive linemen check in as eligible. The Chiefs do a lot of this tackle eligible play, and every time the Chiefs do done, it's always the same thing. The tackle goes up, he goes like this, he makes sure the ref sees him, and that's I've been watching football a long time. I don't remember anything like this happening. But I'm sorry about that. I feel bad for you guys. I legitimately do. But I really think that you should just kicked it. I think you go into overtime, and I think odds are that because you were able to run the ball, they weren't. You looked like the better team. You should just played for OT, and I think you would have won the game. And you're have an opportunity for the 1 seed, and looks like you guys are going to get the 3 seed. So, Keys, is there any chance that you have a chart that you want to show us with your power rankings for the week?
Oh yeah. Hey, let me pull it up here. While I do that though, do you guys know out of last year's first round edge rushers, who's number 1 and number 2 in total career sacks?
Number 1 and number 2 edge rushers. I'm sorry. Can you repeat that again?
From last year's draft, who the number 1 and number 2 edge rushers are in career sacks?
Career sacks. I have no idea, but I know Karliftis hit double digits in sacks last week.
So Hutchinson got 3, so he came into it with 16. He has 19. And number 2 is George Karlaftis with 16 and a half.
Karlaftis has been playing lights out, and so is Hutchinson. It's a nice duo of players. Some Big Ten action. I'm fine with the loss. I just want the refs to accept this mistake. I really don't think you're going to see that. If you would have already seen it. So Hatters out. You're probably not going to get your satisfaction, unfortunately. There's a very good chance the way the playoff seedings are set up, 2 versus 3 is likely. So there's a very good chance you see them again. One Pride, I was not as high as you guys were on him, and I had a 2nd round grade on him. And I saw something earlier in the year, the geniuses from PFF, and I cannot say that sarcastically enough, had him as like the 53rd rated defensive end. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. It just absolutely I'm not saying he's going to go to the Pro Bowl, but he's had a Pro Bowl caliber player. He's a Pro Bowl caliber defensive end, really, really playing some really good football right now. I can't speak enough about him, but I got an energy drink. I'm ranting, so let me get to this here. Number 1 pick in the draft is, for those of you that don't know, is owned by the Chicago Bears. The Carolina Panthers gave up. I wish I had all the compensation for Gooch's boy. The number 1 pick in this year's draft, a 2025 2nd round pick, DJ Moore, who's been almost as good as anybody. I'm drawing a blank on the number 10 pick overall, starting right tackle, and I think there's something else. So the Bears
right? Is it
right? Darnell Wright. I think they reached for him, but that's neither here nor there. Still, he's a starting right tackle, and he's been playing pretty well. So it kind of looks like the balance is slightly towards the Bears at this point, and now they get the number 1 pick in the draft. Just your thoughts on that. Is this going to be one of those trades that's going to be one of the more lopsided trades? Are we going to talk about this like with Herschel Walker, or is this something that's going to sink Carolina and turn Chicago into a contender, or is it just too soon to tell?
Maybe both. I mean, it might be too soon. But we'll have to see. I mean, right now it looks really, really hard for this to be anything but a loss for the Panthers.
Yeah, I completely agree, but I think that there is some hope. But that's the simple fact that the Bears are going to end up with the number 1 pick in the draft. It's going to be really, really interesting. Out of the missing playoff teams here, Keys, which one is most likely, or if you want to give me more than one, give me which one's most likely. Because I notice here, out of the potential wild cards, you have the Bengals, and you have several teams rated higher than the 22 and 23 teams. Which one or ones is most likely to be a playoff team in 2024?
Out of the ones that are missing the playoffs right now?
Yes.
I think Bengals and Jets for sure. It's gonna be interesting with the Broncos or the Chargers, depending on what Sean Payton does at quarterback in Denver, and what the Chargers do with their coaching staff in general, and what direction the Patriots go. So off the top of my head here, I would say definitely the Bengals. And I mean, if Aaron Rodgers comes back and he's actually healthy, I think you have to put the Jets in. I don't know about Nathaniel Hackett, but I think that clearly the quarterback position was just an albatross around the whole collective team's neck. So I'm gonna go Bengals and Jets for sure. Man, it's hard to not say one of those AFC West teams, take your pick depending on what happens there. So that's what I would say.
I couldn't agree with you more. The only team I might put up there as a team that could be really scary is Chicago, but I want to see what they do in the draft. I mean, I don't expect them to take a quarterback, but we're going to talk draft a lot later. For potential wild cards, you got 6 teams there. Give me one or two of those teams. Well, let me do this here. If you can't give me one, which one of these teams do you least likely want to see in the playoffs?
So are we talking about AFC teams that I wouldn't?
You can do AFC or NFC teams. Well, let me, out of those 6 though, which is the team that's scariest to you?
I would probably have to go with the Steelers, and I think it would only really be between the Steelers, the Texans, and the Vikings. And so probably Steelers and Texans, which is kind of reflected on there by the fact that they're 15-16, while I have the Saints and the Seahawks as 22-19. So, yeah, I mean, the Chiefs have already seen, the Vikings. If I was picking an NFC team, though, I would probably pick them over the Saints or Seahawks or Falcons for sure, though. And I was utterly wrong about the Steelers and their schedule. I thought for sure they were going to lose the last 3 games, and it was going to be Tomlin's first year under 500. And somehow he might be a dark wizard or something. That team is at 9-7 with Mason Rudolph as its current starting quarterback. So, you know what? I would probably pick the Steelers at this point, even over the Texans, but I think it would be pretty close between the two.
I kind of have a heart. Yeah, I kind of like the 15-16 there. Both those teams could be really scary. I think Mason Rudolph, I thought that was we haven't even talked about this, but Kenny Pickett's actually healthy, and they're going to go with Mason Rudolph because Tomlin's just going with the hot hand. I was really surprised because of all the coaches in the NFL to go with the quarterback with the hot hand. I did not expect Tomlin to do this. Does adding Mason Rudolph change your opinion on the Steelers? How much do they? Because to me, I think they're a much scarier team with a quarterback who looks better than what we've seen Pickett do, or definitely Trubisky.
I don't think I've been shy that Kenny Pickett is not the answer, and I'm not saying he can't be a decent NFL starting quarterback, but he's not the answer. He's not an it guy, and I don't see. And I mean, I could be wrong. Not the first time I've been wrong that this season or in NFL history, period. But I don't see him as being really even an above average type of guy. So, yeah, it was surprising to me, you know, just because that's not usually what happens, you know, when you have a guy that's just been drafted as a first rounder, you know, whether this year or last year, to just see that kind of move coming back from injury. But I think in some sense, you know, between rust and between how good Rudolph has looked, I think it makes some sense. I mean, if he comes out struggling, I would guess that he's not coming out as the starter at halftime, though.
Yeah, I really thought that the issue was more offensive coordinator, but I mean, when I watched Mason Rudolph, and I didn't watch the whole game, I saw clips, but it really, Mason Rudolph was a guy I absolutely loved coming out of Oklahoma State. I love this guy. I thought that this guy could have been a first round pick. I'm not really. Remember that quarterback draft was just loaded, though. They had, you know, Mayfield, Darnold, Josh Allen, the kid who I don't even think he's with an NFL team anymore. The Cardinals picked him at 10. I can't think of his name. UCLA quarterback. But I thought that in a lesser quarterback heavy draft, I thought Mason Rudolph might have been a first round pick. I never understood why Mason Rudolph didn't work out, but he adds something to the Steelers. One Pride, I will be doing a Black Monday show. Hit me up. We talk on Instagram, so I mean, just hit me up. But yeah, I'll be on Monday. Playoff teams here. Josh Rosen, thank you. Yes, yeah. So Mason Rudolph slid to the third, and I thought that was a genius move for the Steelers because I thought Roethlisberger wasn't going to play for another. I was expecting his career to kind of get wrapped up a lot sooner. So, but I never understood why Mason Rudolph wasn't the heir apparent, why you couldn't make plans. But hey, look, you got your chance. Take full advantage of it, Mason Rudolph. That's going to be a fun situation to watch going forward. That quarterback situation in Pittsburgh. Playoff teams. I really love this list here. We have out of these teams here. I'm trying to do my math, and for some reason or another, I'm just drawing a complete blank, and I'm not really sure why here. Okay, never mind. I see it's 7 from each side. Okay, 7 from each side. So Keys is given an indicator right off the top of the bat. Keys, I'm a little surprised you have Tampa Bay beating Carolina. Can you elaborate on
that? Carolina's terrible.
Man,
now they'll probably win, but yeah.
You know what? I really wanted to pick Carolina to win that game, and then I saw them get shut out by Jacksonville, and I'm like, no. And I know, you know, Gooch's boy. Gooch has said many times that Bryce Young will be the best quarterback in football in 2 years, but unfortunately, I'm teasing. Never said that. I should not. I think it's going to be a fun game, but I don't see Carolina. No, I really wanted to pick Carolina to win. I want chaos, but no. You also have in the Colts-Texans game, you have the Colts winning.
Yep.
I have an upset. If you watch my picks video, which is below, I have the Texans winning that game in a crazy upset. I'm cheering for chaos, and the Jacksonville Jaguars traveling to Tennessee. Are you sure about this one? I mean, it's in Tennessee. They're Tennessee's a better team at home, and I mean, you got Beathard, you got Lawrence. Are you sure about this one?
I mean, I think for either of the last two, they can go either way. But I made my picks, and they'll either happen or not. So,
all right. I'm trying to sway your opinion. BD Buster says, "What a heartbreaker!" And yeah, there's a lot of God. There's so much I could go into that game, and we got limited time here. I want to make sure I get all the keys. Minshew, Rudolph, Browning, hottest backup turn starter as an acquisition target next year. That's a good one. Don't forget, we also got Jameis Winston, who started some games in the NFL, always had a ton of talent. Baker Mayfield's going to be a free agent.
Russ is going to be a free agent.
Russell Wilson is going to be a free agent. Trevor Siemian or Zach Wilson. This is a great question. Oh man, look, I got Denver Gators in the house. Denver Gator. Keys, you know what? This is really a great question. Do you want me to answer this or you want to go first?
Yeah, you answer it. Go ahead.
My opinion is I really always believed that Mason Rudolph should have got a fair chance to start at Pittsburgh. I loved him coming out of Oklahoma State. He was a big dude. He was athletic. He's got a big arm. I loved Mason Rudolph. I never understood why he didn't get a chance. Gardner Minshew, in my opinion, should have been the starter. I really think the Colts. Now, Keys hasn't gone to the playoffs. I do not. Gardner Minshew should have been the starter from the very beginning. And what you should have done is you should have took Anthony Richardson, the raw, super talented quarterback, and said, look, we'll put you in on some 2-point plays. We'll put a few packages in for you due to your skill set, but we're going to build this team around Minshew and Eberflus was the offensive coordinator for Philly. Minshew knew the offense. So in my opinion, in Browning, now Keys has been on record calling Joe Burrow a system quarterback, and that's all he is. He's not that good, folks. Browning's been the biggest surprise because I remember watching Jake Browning and I thought he had some talent, but when Burrow went down, I had no idea Browning was going to be this good. For me, the number one answer for me is easily Mason Rudolph. Now, I had such a man crush on him coming into the draft. I really think that Pittsburgh, I don't understand why he never developed. I never understood why they didn't say, hey, look, this is going to be the guy. I don't understand why they went after Mitchell Trubisky. I don't get that at all. For me, Mason Rudolph is easily the guy. Minshew's a very competent starter. If you're a team looking to draft a quarterback and you need somebody to take over for a year, I would easily bring in Gardner Minshew. With Browning, I don't know how much is that is the Bengals' awesome receiving core. Zach Taylor just doing an excellent job in coaching. So that's one where if I'm Browning, I might not even try to leave Cincinnati. I might just say, hey, look, I'm just going to stay right here because Burrow breaks down apparently every other year, and I'm really good in this offense. So I might just hang out and have some of that and eat some of that terrible chili and invest in Pepto-Bismol or something. That stuff. Like, how do you got what's wrong? All right, well, the small rant before I go. That chili, by the way, if you're a Bengals fan, try to defend this garbage. I mean, what is this here? It's disgusting. Come on.
Amber Heard saw a plate and mistook it for a bed.
It's just, come on, guys. All right, so Keys here, Minshew, Rudolph, Browning. What's your thoughts here? What's your number one?
Well, Browning actually doesn't even have an accrued season, and they were talking about this during the broadcast Monday. So technically, the Bengals are going to have his rights for this is his first season, technically speaking. So they'll have his rights. So if he goes anywhere, it'll be because they make a trade. But I don't think they should because he's very cost controlled. And you're going to be paying Burrow more money, over the next 3 seasons. So having a cost-controlled quarterback, even though he is 27, having a cost-controlled quarterback who knows your system, who's performing like he is in this system, and we're all talking about how Burrow, constantly breaks down every year. I think the smart move for them is to hold on to him unless a team gets really desperate and just overwhelms them. Which, I mean, you never know, right? Because if Lou Anarumo leaves, they have the familiarity there. Maybe he goes to a team that doesn't really have a legitimate planted quarterback, and that team makes a move. But other than that, I think the smart money is just for the Bengals to hold on to him here. I've liked Minshew. Rudolph has done good. I just wonder how many starting quarterback positions are even going to be available this next season. And if we get as many rookies in the first round as are predicted, how many of those are going to start and how that kind of sways quarterback signings anyway. So I don't know how many of these guys are going to get a contract to be the starter anyway. It is likely going to be a lateral move for them.
It's funny you brought up Lou Anarumo. He's the defensive coordinator for the Bengals. If this is your first time tuning into the show, me and Keys both thought that he deserved a head coaching job last year. And if you watch the game between the Bengals and the Chiefs, they kept on posting the numbers for the Bengals defense being bad. But if you know football, you know that Lou Anarumo is one of the best defensive coordinators in football. Forget the numbers that you may have seen on TV. He's an excellent defensive mind. He might actually stay in Cincinnati. A couple months ago, I might have told you that this is definitely going to be an NFL head coach. And we'll talk about that when I come on Monday. If he could take Browning with him. That never occurred to me. Let me ask you this: out of these three guys, let's say you're a team that's going to have a new quarterback. Let's say you're going to get a new head coach. You need a quarterback to start, and you're trying to win as many games as you can. Let's just go Washington, for example. Which one of these three quarterbacks would give you the best chance to win?
In that offense, is Eric Bieniemy going to stay there?
No.
Well, depending on who's there, I would.
That's kind of a tough one.
I would lean towards Minshew myself. But it really depends on the offense, the offensive system that he is in. He has some skills and he needs the offense to utilize them. But I think when that match is there, I think he's probably the best option of the two. Because again, I don't think Browning is leaving anywhere, but we don't even know that he's not a system quarterback himself because he's got Chase, Higgins, and Boyd and Mixon there. So.
BD Buster brings up a great point. Baltimore's defensive coordinator. He's an interesting story because he left. He was the linebackers coach. He left to go to Michigan. Of course, the Harbaugh brothers connection. He took over as defensive coordinator for Michigan, completely turned around that defense, took over. He did such a good job at Michigan that Baltimore fired longtime defensive coordinator Wink Martindale, one of the best defensive coordinators in football. And Baltimore made a bold move by firing a really good longtime defensive coordinator, brought in Mike McDonald. I think it's Mike McDonald. I could be mistaken on the name. Bringing him in to be the new defensive coordinator, but it's paid dividends, and the Ravens defense has gotten better. It would not surprise me. He will get interviewed, BD Buster. I'm not sure if he'll get a job or not. Same thing with Lou Anarumo. Ben Johnson for your Lions, I fully expect to be gone. But I'll have a show on Monday, and I'm going to talk about potential head coaches, and I'll rate the positions and everything. Out of the playoff teams 7 through 14, I know that you got them listed because you did a great job here putting the numbers up here. Which one of these teams is most likely to move up into that Super Bowl contender from the AFC and NFC?
I mean, I think you have to start with the team that I bumped off of it, which is the Eagles from the NFC. But at the same time, the Rams keep making a push, and they're getting the running game together. They have legitimate two receivers, and I mean, you could put them there at 1B out of those two teams from playoffs to be Super Bowl contenders. And you could probably make the same argument from the AFC between the Browns and Dolphins. I think they're probably, honestly, just to see those two teams match up against each other would probably be a lot of fun. The Browns and the Dolphins right now.
I agree completely with you here. And if the way the playoffs would work out is that you would have the Bucks playing the Eagles. The Bucks would play the Eagles. The Jaguars would play the Browns. And am I correct that you would have both those road teams advancing in the playoffs? Or is it too soon to tell?
Are we going off of what I think is going to happen or what my tiers are right now?
Actually, let's do this here. Let's go off with what you think is going to happen.
All right. Let me pull up my my playoffs here.
Because according to what you have here, you have the Bucks winning the division, and they would play the Eagles. Now, there is a possibility that Dallas loses to Washington. We've seen weirder things. But more than likely, what you're going to see is Dallas win the NFC East. And if that's the case, and Tampa Bay, unless they lose to Carolina, again, we have seen weirder things. But if Tampa Bay wins, they're going to win the division. Dallas wins, they're going to win the division. I don't think it's a stretch to say that both those things are likely to happen. In the wild card round, Tampa Bay and Philly, let's just take that game because that seems obvious. And now I don't want to put words in your mouth here. Tampa Bay Philly is do you see that going on, or do you have something different going on?
Yeah, that's how I have it. I have Philly at Tampa Bay, and I would have the Eagles winning that game.
And then in the AFC, with a win, Jacksonville beats Tennessee. It is in Tennessee, and Tennessee does play better at home, but you have Jacksonville winning, and then they would play Cleveland. You would have Cleveland advancing. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, I think it's a coin flip, so you can have it either way. If you have Jacksonville as the 4 seed or the Texans, I don't think it really matters there. And if I recall correctly, even if Tennessee wins, Jacksonville still makes the playoffs, right?
Well, so here's where it gets a little creative. If Jacksonville wins, they win the AFC South. Guaranteed, yeah. They're the 4 seed.
4 seed.
Now, if they lose, it gets a little creative because if I remember correctly, I'm just spitballing this off the top of my head, so I may be wrong on this. They would need oh boy, let me see here. If they lose and Houston wins, Houston would get the 4 seed, but they would they hold the tiebreaker over the Colts. I believe that this is correct. I might be wrong about this, so bear with me. It's going to be a very convoluted explanation. Okay. Pittsburgh has to lose. All right. So that's key because if Pittsburgh wins and Jacksonville loses, Pittsburgh would overtake Jacksonville. Now, if Pittsburgh loses to Baltimore, they're out. Pittsburgh can't get in no matter what. So if Jacksonville loses, Pittsburgh loses, Houston wins, Jacksonville would get the 7 seed. So bear with me. It sounded very confusing, but I believe that is to be correct. Now, if the Colts beat Houston and Jacksonville loses, Baltimore loses, Houston, I believe, would get the 7 seed over Jacksonville. I could be wrong on that. I believe that is correct, though. And that was very convoluted, so I apologize. I apologize in advance.
Yeah, that was very confusing. It might have just been.
I'm sorry. But bottom line, Jacksonville should win. They should beat Tennessee. But I'll be honest with you, Tennessee's a different team at home. Trevor Lawrence is going to be banged up. Will Levis is going to be banged up. But bottom line, Jacksonville can lose this game and still get into the playoffs. But I would be,
as long as Pittsburgh doesn't win.
If Pittsburgh wins, then if Pittsburgh wins and Jacksonville loses, Pittsburgh needs something else to happen, and I'm drawing a complete blank. Pittsburgh would also need Buffalo to lose. No, wait a minute. No, they don't. No, they don't. You know what? I apologize because I'm drawing a blank. I'm almost positive Pittsburgh needs something else. In a perfect world for Pittsburgh, Houston and the Colts tie, and Pittsburgh sneaks into the playoffs thanks to a tie. They beat Baltimore, and Houston, Indianapolis tie. That's like the perfect scenario for the Steelers. So, but I don't have it all memorized. But if I'm correct, Jacksonville can lose if Pittsburgh loses. Houston wins, they get 7 seed. Pittsburgh loses and Houston loses, they're out. I believe that's correct. And I could just be full of shit. You never know. But, we'll make it easy here, though. Like Jags, just win the damn game and you're in. Come on now.
Yeah, what I'm seeing here as I play with the ESPN playoff machine is as long as Pittsburgh loses, the Jags are in, even if they lose. The only way they're not in is if Pittsburgh wins and the Jags lose, is what I'm seeing. I think that's right.
Ideally, though, Jacksonville, I mean, I'm on level with you. If Jacksonville can't beat Tennessee for a win-in game when Tennessee's a 5-win team going into this, I have a hard time believing that they're going to beat either Buffalo or Miami. And I do want to touch base on this here because I'm reading just on your Super Bowl contenders versus your playoff teams. Now, you mentioned earlier that Miami is a team that could be very exciting. I mean, tons of playmakers. They're fun to watch. Buffalo, Miami. I'm assuming since Buffalo's your number 3 team, you have them winning and advancing, and they're going to be the number 2 seed.
That is what it looks like right now. For me, I do not see the Dolphins winning this game. Listen, I wouldn't be mad if the Dolphins won this game, but I don't think it's going to happen. So I want to touch base. I think this is really interesting. Even though Buffalo's in a win and in situation for the final game of the NFL season, the Buffalo Bills do not even have a playoff spot locked up. You have them as the number 3 team in the NFL. Is that correct? Yeah. And, part of that is just part of it's based off of talent. Part of it's based on how the teams look right now. And part of it's based off of scheduling. And so for me, what I've seen out of Buffalo and the teams that they played the last few weeks, that's where they look.
Yeah, and I also thought it was interesting that Von Miller is actually last I heard he was a healthy scratch. I thought that was very interesting. The Bills deciding not to play Von Miller. I thought that was very interesting. I have a hard time believing that they would rest him for the playoffs, but I thought that was interesting. That may be something that I might have misread, but when I saw that, it was very intriguing. I mean, especially going against a team like Miami. Let me flip this around. Miami beats Buffalo. They become the 2 seed. Would they become your number 3 team, or do you have them a little further down the line? Or let me ask you this here. Let me throw that out. Let's not go into numbers. Does Miami become a Super Bowl contender if they beat Buffalo?
I'd have to say yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So whoever wins the final game of the season will be a Super Bowl contender. The loser is going to be still a playoff team. Well, actually, Miami would still be a playoff team. If you missed my video, I explained this in a little detail. Bottom line, Miami wins, they become the 2 seed. They lose, then they become the 6 seed, and they will travel to Arrowhead. Lucian Harmon, Miami's not ready. I agree completely. I don't think that they beat Buffalo. I think they'll end up traveling to Arrowhead for the wild card round, and that's going to be a lot of fun. Kansas City, Miami. I'll be honest with you. I'm a little nervous about seeing Miami because I know fully well how explosive Tyreek Hill can be, and it's an exciting team. It's an exciting team. So, but Lucian, man, welcome, man. I don't recognize you, so it's great seeing you here. If you're a Miami Dolphins fan, we need more Dolphins fans here. So, a great comment here. I'd love to see more of you. Super Bowl contenders. We got Buffalo. We got Kansas City. We got Detroit. We got Dallas. Now, Keys, Dallas just beat Detroit. So why is Detroit number 4 and Dallas number 5?
Because though they beat Detroit, they didn't beat Detroit.
Yeah, I said the same thing earlier. When I watched these 2 teams play, I was really surprised in seeing that I was really expecting, even if Detroit won, I was expecting Dallas to lose because they self-destructed. Now, Dallas made some mistakes in this game, but it seemed pretty obvious watching this game. Detroit looked like the better team. You picked them as your NFC Super Bowl pick at the beginning of the season. Now you have them at 4 and San Francisco at 2. Am I reading this correctly that you believe it's going to be an NFC championship game between the 49ers and Lions?
Hey, that would be a lot of fun. I think that the 49ers are the most talented team in the NFC, but we have to see them play in the playoffs with their quarterback staying healthy and the team staying healthy. So, yeah. I think there's a great chance it could be 49ers and Lions, and that would be a lot of fun to watch.
Oh, I would absolutely love that. It would be a lot of fun because I think 49ers are, if they're completely healthy, I think they have the most talent in football. But I've been saying this for several weeks. I don't see them being healthy, and Christian McCaffrey is not going to play. By the way, the 49ers needed to win this game. Christian McCaffrey probably would play, but because the Niners locked up the 1 seed, they're going to rest him. So just so when I bring up that Christian McCaffrey's banged up, it's not a serious enough injury that would cause him to miss a game that the Niners need. But because they don't need this game, the Niners are going to rest a lot of starters. One advantage is the Dolphins have coming into a cold. Yeah, I believe that it's a big advantage of a warm weather team coming into a cold Arrowhead. But I've seen the Dolphins win. Matter of fact, one of the coldest games I've ever been to at Arrowhead. Miami came in and won in a shootout. It was 38-31, and it was. The reason why it was so brutal is because there was it was like a 20 mile an hour wind, and wind is the killer. Like, especially I sit on the upper level. you can prepare for a lot of things, but wind you can't prepare for. One of the coldest games I've ever been to was, and the Dolphins won that game 38-31. So it is possible, but it's definitely an advantage coming to Arrowhead. It wouldn't be an advantage for Miami if the Chiefs went down to Miami. I really don't think it would be the same advantage. I think the crowd would be more. Dolphins fans, don't get mad at me that Chiefs fans are just louder than Dolphins fans. I'm sorry. I mean, I'm not Lucian. I'm assuming that you're a Miami fan. I'm not insulting your team here. I'm just letting you know that I don't think the Dolphins' home field advantage for the playoffs is the same as the Arrowhead home advantage. Keys, am I wrong here? The Arrowhead home advantage, am I reading too much into this? I mean, Chiefs did lose 3 straight before they beat the Bengals.
Yeah, we really haven't had – I don't think we've really had an advantage since the Mahomes era. And I think it was Gooch that talked about, part of that is because it becomes kind of like – and it's certainly not true for even a majority of fans, but that to some aspect, the people buying tickets are buying it more as like entertainment, kind of a spectacle to come watch Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, as opposed to come as Chiefs fans. So you don't get near the cheering. It still gets loud, but it's not as loud because you don't have the 70,000 people united for cheering for the Chiefs. Some of them are just the big shots with the money who want to go for the Patrick Mahomes experience.
You nailed it perfectly. As a Chiefs season ticket holder since '89, I can tell you for an absolute fact, the Arrowhead crowd in the 90s with a dominant defense was twice as loud as the Vermeil era with the dominant offense. And I wish I could articulate this better, but teams that have better defenses have better home field advantages. The crowd just gets so much more into a dominant defense and a dominant offense. I wish I could explain that better. All I can tell you is that in the 90s, the crowd affected the game so much more than in the Vermeil era. One of the biggest crowd advantages in the Andy Reid era was in his first season, and that was 2013. Terrell Pryor was quarterback to the Raiders. He was sacked 10 times, and I remember the Andy Reid came into he says the MVP is the crowd because the Raiders had like 5 or 6 false starts. After that game, Terrell Pryor was benched and then later moved to wide receiver. So that ended his quarterback career. That's how bad the Arrowhead advantage was, is that there was one point, I'm not exaggerating, you have to go back. At one point, there was a 3rd and 46 or 48 in that game. 3rd and 48. I mean, it was like multiple false starts, a holding call. Terrell Pryor ran backwards for 20 yards. It was – and I'm letting you know right now, when the defense is playing really good football, the crowd is so much more into it. And Keys is right. It's since Mahomes has entered as the star of the NFL, it's the Mahomes experience. Yeah, Arrowhead's not the same. Dude, Lucian, man, I'm sorry, man. I didn't mean to assume, man. I'm not a Miami fan. I love. Hey, listen, man. Hey, listen. That's what this channel's all about. All 32 fan bases. I think Miami is weak in the trenches on both sides of the ball. Keys, can I get your opinion on this? Excellent. I think it's an excellent comment here. Is Lucian correct here? I've never seen it before in my chat, so I'm kind of excited about this.
I think the defensive line is okay, and it definitely has a guy in Christian Wilkins that I would love to see in Kansas City next year.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess, if you want to make that point as a whole, sadly, if I recall correctly in the Chiefs game, it seemed like they were still able to kind of have their way enough. But yeah, it's the offensive line, part of that whole Shanahan legacy, is more set up to be friendly to the players because of the blocking scheme itself. So I could understand that part of it. But yeah, I mean, and of course that's different, right? That game, we saw that game was in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of a different animal as to, how tough a team like Miami is when it's really cold outside. And I understand it can happen, every year. But every team, every iteration of a team is different. The players live in different places. They go to college in different places. They've been to college in different places. And, I think, Tyreek is used to it. But I think that he was also more banged up in Kansas City because of the weather. So I think that plays a part in it in kind of neutralizing their Miami speed.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point, is that the cold weather will serve as an advantage to take away some of the speed of the Dolphins easily.
Yeah, you don't want to get hit in the cold.
You do not. There's a big difference. I'll never forget. I was watching something on, I forget which YouTube channel it was, that Mark Sanchez was firmly committed to go to Ohio State. Like, he was on his recruiting trip and he was getting ready to sign. And then the head coach, Mark Trussell, talks about playing Michigan in the snow. And Mark Sanchez went to a California school. And then he's like, snow? I've never seen snow. I don't want to play in the snow. And he ends up signing with you. But there's a lot of players that come from California, Florida, Texas that want to play in warm weather that really don't handle it very, very well. Denver Gator, thank you so much for pointing out that I at the end of my picks video, I do have a how to stay warm at Arrowhead video. It's an excellent video. Yes, I'm self-promoting, but I hate being cold, and I have some excellent tips on how to stay warm if you do attend a game in cold weather. So do watch that video. Lucian's on fire here, man. Chiefs are struggling this year, so I feel it's hard to get a good grade on teams when playing them. Look what happened when the Jets played Kansas City, and Kansas City's it's just been frustrating. Lucian, I think the simple, I think I'm a minority here, that I think the simple problem is the Chiefs receivers just drop passes. I really think that if the Chiefs receivers just simply caught passes, this would be the best team in the AFC, maybe the NFL. I really think that's all it is, because Mahomes doesn't trust the receivers to make simple plays. He's been taking chances he normally doesn't take. He's run more than ever in his career. And I don't know how familiar you are with the Chiefs, but this is easily the best Chiefs defense in the last 5-10 years. I mean, this defense has just played awesome this year. And Tyreek's quads were constantly tight and pulling while in Kansas City, moving to Miami. Hey, Tyreek Hill came very close to getting 2,000 yards. I don't know the exact number. I mean, he could get 2,000 yards if he has 400 yards against Buffalo. I don't know that. I know he's banged up, but I fully expect him to play, and he should have a good game. But let me ask you this here, Keys. Are you one of these guys that was like anti Tyreek Hill when he left to Miami? There was a lot of Chiefs fans that had some animosity for him just going for the big bucks instead of staying here.
He got traded on my birthday, so when I woke up to it, it was kind of a shock. But if there's any animosity I have with Tyreek, it's that he has constantly been jealous and just not shut up. Like, go to Miami, make out with your quarterback, enjoy yourself, and move on. Stop going back to the past. And I think that was the biggest issue. He thought for sure that we would not win a Super Bowl without him. And the moment Kansas City beat the Eagles and won the Super Bowl, it just ate at his ego. And I think that's been a biggest driver. Like, you know what? He got his money. That's fine. I understand he's got family in Miami. I understand Florida doesn't have a state income tax. I understand it's beautiful there. I understand that unlike Missouri, there are yachts there so you can, assault people at the marina. I understand all of this, so good for him. I don't really care about that, but just shut the hell up and enjoy your new life. Stop looking back. Stop being jealous. Just enjoy your new life.
Yeah, the whole Tua being more accurate than Mahomes. I know there was a lot of Chiefs fans that bristled at that. I mean,
well, he is. Did you not see how accurate his passes to the Ravens defense were?
Where did Tua go to school at? I can't remember where it is. I think he went to quarterback U, according to Gooch. By the way, we're joking. Gooch is part of the Backtalk Brothers. He's a diehard Alabama fan. I would actually, I'm dying to ask Gooch about what he thinks of the college football playoffs, but I got keys only for a couple more minutes, so I don't want to dive into college football too much here. Super Bowl contenders. So Buffalo, Kansas City, 3-6. We're both Chiefs fans here, but Buffalo's a better team than Kansas City because we all know that if Kadarius Toney's not really rolled offside, the Chiefs beat the Bills, and the Bills aren't even going to the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair, but I think and last week, I wasn't on, but last week I had the Chiefs, I think, at 10th or 11th.
Yeah,
and they were just in the playoff teams. And it's going to be hard because we don't expect starters to play next week because Kansas City's locked into the 3 seed. So it doesn't really matter for them. And the smart move is for them to rest their starters and say, screw you, NFL. Hey, we're still giving ourselves a bye. And so, we're not going to really see 2 weeks of consistency to kind of prove, that Monday wasn't a fluke, offensively. But, it's still hard to me because you say it's just a matter of the receivers dropping the ball. And I think it's actually about 15 or 20 different things. But, it's kind of one of the reasons I put them back on here was because of the but. It's like 15 things, and they're legitimate things, and not one of them is necessarily a big thing. It's just like everything together is kind of compounded. The Chiefs came out this last week and, by all reports, simplified the offense, and it simplified the offense and simplified their wide receiver rotation, apparently. And it made the offense look better. But, but my but is there's like 15 things, they all compound, but at the end of the day, you're still right. And that's one of the reasons I bumped them back up to Super Bowl contender and why I had them on there all season, until last week anyway, was because there was still the but, right? It's like all of these issues going on with the offense. They have 5 losses this season, but they lost by 1 in week 1 without Travis Kelce, the best tight end maybe of all time, one of the top 2 defensive tackles in the game, and Chris Jones not playing. And it still took a pass off of Kadarius Toney's hands, return for 6, to lose by 1. And you look at the Eagles game, you look at the Bills game, as you mentioned, you start looking at most of these losses, and the offense has like 15 issues going on, but they still lose by 1, or they still lose by 2, or they still lose by 3. And it's really hard to not include them as a Super Bowl contender because of that. But because as we saw this last week, and by the way, it doesn't even matter whatever rankings we want to throw out about Lou Anarumo's defense. Lou Anarumo is the defensive coordinator in the NFL over the last 3 years or so who knows exactly what the hell to do to stifle Andy Reid and stifle Patrick Mahomes. It's plain and simple. The man knows exactly what to do as a defensive coordinator. So you got the blueprint from, if there's a blueprint, you got it from what the Raiders did. You already know what to do. And you go out there and you challenge them, and the Chiefs still win this game, which to me is huge, because as we said, Joe Burrow is a system quarterback. We knew Browning was still going to look great because he's looked great in every game but like one, right? And so that's why they're still in the 6. But the Bills have really been hot as of late. So that's why I have them ahead of Kansas City.
I didn't realize this until now that when I did a video top 10 tight ends of all time, and I put Kelsey at 1, and I go into a lot of detail, but one of the reasons I had Kelsey at 1 is that no other tight end in NFL history has had more than 3 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons. And this is however long they've been keeping the stat alive. And of course, it's more of a passing league. Kelsey has 7. This year would be 8. And I didn't realize this, but I thought he already hit 1,000, but he's at 984. He's at 984. So he needs 16 more yards. I know they haven't announced it yet, but I don't think Mahomes is going to play at all. Does Kelsey play just to get these 17 yards?
I really hope so. And I hope that Andy Reid spends a half a day just to design one play to get him those freaking yards and get him out. Just one play, a big hitter.
Yeah.
18, 20 yards down the field. Let him get his yards, let him take off his helmet and tip his helmet because, football can be baseball, and let him walk off the field and sit there on the sidelines and cheer.
Yeah, I agree completely. I still think as of right now, Travis Kelce's the best tight end in football. His stats are down. 93 catches, 984 yards, and 5 touchdowns. But keep in mind, he's missed a few games. It wouldn't – I mean, we got a whole off season, but probably going into next year. And I'm not trying to pander to my Lions fans, but I might go into next year and I might call Laporta the best tight end in football going into 2024. I really think he's been that good. But we'll have to see. That's 2024. But yeah, I want to see Kelsey get 16 yards. Another thing I didn't realize is that also Rashee Rice, 938 yards receiving, thanks to 127 yards last year or last week against the Bengals with 63 yards. He goes over 1,000. You know what? After seeing this, I almost want to put a prop bet down on Rashee Rice receiving yards. Am I crazy here, or do I think that? I mean, we both think that Travis Kelce will get his yards. How big would it be for Rashee Rice to get 1,000 yards?
Yeah, it would be crazy because I want to say is it Chiefs receiving. I want to say he already tied or broke the Chiefs rookie wide receiver touchdown mark. Right?
I think you're right. I want to quote that he's also broken the receiving yards, but I'm not 100% sure on that. If I'm correct, it was held by Otis Taylor. I think both those numbers were held by Otis Taylor. I could be wrong on that.
Yeah, so it looks like he broke it actually a week ago against the Raiders, the receiving yards. So maybe he tied on the touchdown. I'll have to look that up. But definitely.
No, I mean, I'm kind of excited. I want to see both these things happen. I'm also kind of excited that I don't want to see Patrick Mahomes play at all next week. I want to see the Blaine Gabbert Bowl, and I want to see him enter that list with those other three quarterbacks that you mentioned. Because for those of you that don't know, Blaine Gabbert is a former first-round pick who's got a world of talent. It's just when he was with Jacksonville, that was just kind of a disaster. But unlike a lot of guys, he seems rather content in just being a backup quarterback. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. How excited would you be about seeing Blaine Gabbert?
Not at all. I mean, if we're being honest, it would be maybe a quarter for me, just to get those guys their records, and then I would be completely happy with them just like putting Chris Oladokin, is that his name, in the rest of the game.
Chris Oladokin, I don't even know who you're referring to. Who's Oladokin?
He's the quarterback that's on the practice squad.
Oh, he's the. I'll be honest with you. I'm kind of excited to see Blaine Gabbert. I thought this was kind of a neat, because for the Chiefs for a long time had Chad Henne, and I felt very confident in Chad Henne. I want to see if we had the same type of guy in Blaine Gabbert, who I think is a much more talented guy than Henne, but I'm kind of excited about this. Lucian comes in saying KC is fresh off Super Bowl, so I'll give them a pass this year along with Philly. Here's the thing, Lucian. I'm not sure what team you're a fan of, but Kansas City's in the middle of a dynasty. And I love the fact that we have a dynasty, and I want to keep it rolling. So I want to win another Super Bowl, and I really thought that this team could possibly be better than last year's team. I just wasn't sure about the receiving core. The problem is that this receiving core is so much worse than I would have expected. I really thought that I was expecting so much more from this receiving core. So if you told me before the season started how good the defense was, I seriously would have said we'll probably be 16-1. I'm not exaggerating by that.
Right.
If I recall correctly, the Chiefs had the hardest schedule the first half of the season. Then you add on ending the season with 6 consecutive games of negative net rest advantage. And what Keys is talking about is that the last 6 games of the season, every single opponent had I think one opponent had 7 hours, but all the rest of them have had at least 1 day advantage of rest advantage before playing Kansas City. This will change, however, if it ends up being Chiefs Dolphins, because the Dolphins will play at night and the Kansas City will play in the afternoon. Super Bowl favorites. I think it's pretty self-explanatory here. I think you nailed it perfectly. I would have the same order. I have a hard time picturing anybody arguing or disagreeing with this. I know you're on a time constraint here, Keys. So I'm going to get you out of here, but can you go over in a little more detail about your Super Bowl favorites? Talk a little bit about the Ravens and 49ers.
Yeah, I mean, I think the unexciting thing is we've now seen this matchup, and it didn't even look particularly close. So, at this point, it's kind of like assuming Baltimore plays in the playoffs, how they have during the season, and not how they traditionally have played in the playoffs. It's kind of like who is on Baltimore's level at this point. So, that's why they're number one here. Those two teams playing, it didn't look particularly close, when they played each other. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
Let me throw out a trick question, and I'll let you go right after this here, because you do have Baltimore at number one. Is it more exciting that Baltimore gets through the playoffs and almost anticlimactic if they make the Super Bowl due to this problems that they've had in the playoffs with Lamar Jackson? Or is the Super Bowl where he proves that he's that upper echelon quarterback right up there with Patrick Mahomes?
I don't think it's possible for him to prove that, simply because it's kind of like Jalen Hurts. It's kind of like Joe Burrow. It's kind of like Justin Herbert. It's kind of like Tom Brady when he was in Tampa Bay. You know, you take these guys and they are coddled with weapons, right? It's like Lamar needed to be coddled with weapons, like legitimate, and not just one or two, right? Like a multitude of them. I think where it could help him is that it could show that Greg Roman was holding him back. He has to win. At this point, it will tarnish his legacy, in my opinion, if he does not lead the Ravens to the Super Bowl and win a Super Bowl this season. Because we've talked about the excuses before with Greg Roman, with him having to make business decisions. He's got his big fat contract. He's got Todd Monken there. He's got Odell Beckham, who's been to Super Bowls before. And he's got a nice set of receivers and tight ends, even without Mark Andrews. I don't know if you saw that catch by Isaiah Likely the other day, but that was an amazing one-handed catch. Not just a one-handed catch, but he brought it into his body one-handed. He caught it one-handed. He brought it into his body one-handed while he was running on that like fourth and whatever it was. I believe it ended up going for a touchdown. So, I think that a not winning the Super Bowl can only hurt his legacy, but I'm not sure exactly how much winning it can bump up his legacy.
Yeah, in my opinion here, I think if Baltimore ends up going to the Super Bowl, especially if it's against San Francisco, because they beat them so badly, it would almost be kind of anticlimactic. I think it's more of a deal of getting through the playoffs, which honestly could be interesting because they would have the 1 seed. So the 1 seed has a bye and they play the lowest ranked team. It looks like the way the playoffs work out, not knock on wood, Kansas City advances. Buffalo, if they have the 2 seed, they probably advance. But I could see Cleveland beating Jacksonville and Baltimore playing Cleveland in that first playoff game. Well, the last time these two teams played in Baltimore, Cleveland won that game, and that might be the key. So Keith says people talk about Super Bowl hangovers for players, but I think for Kansas City, it's for Andy Reid and some of the coaches. For Philly, isn't about Super Bowl; it's about them losing their coordinators, in my opinion. Yeah, they I'll be honest with you. I really, when Philly was 10-1, I thought that they just looked unstoppable, and they've just completely fallen apart down the stretch. Keys, listen, I know that you're on a time constraint here, and I know you got to get going. So before you leave here, final thoughts, comments, concerns, anything you want to go over. The time is completely yours. I hate having you leave personally, but I understand. It was up to me. I'd keep you here a lot longer, but before you get out of here, rant away. Time is yours.
Yeah, hey, listen, I don't think there is any rant here, other than the fact that my job is back at it tomorrow, so I'll be waking up super early for that, and I'm not exactly excited. I'll be waking up in like 20-degree weather, and I need a vehicle that has remote start. So if someone wants to start a GoFundMe for remote start for my vehicle, that would be great. But yeah, I mean, listen, every week I keep saying any given Sunday, any given Saturday, any given Sunday, any given Monday. And we've basically seen it play out, every single week to the point that probably Baltimore and San Francisco aren't safe in the playoffs. We don't know what's going to happen. So, if you want to bet life savings, make sure it's Dan's.
By the way, Keys is going to start an OnlyFans. So the pay for his remote start. Keys, thank you so much for joining us here. I hope to have you back on again soon. I'll stay in touch with you. Don't forget, Keys is part of Back Talk Brothers. They will be live tomorrow night, 7:30. Am I correct? You're still going to be live 7:30?
Yep.
All right. Well, Keys, thank you so much here. I'll kick you off, and I will see you back on later. So, Keys, thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Dan.
All right, man. You take care, brother. All right. So, Lucian, I've been having Keys come on as a regular, longtime guest of the show, guy I consider a friend, even though we've never met in person, but he's been coming on for the last several years. Normally I go about 2 hours. I really don't have a show where I don't have a time that I end things. I just kind of end it when there's comments kind of end. But Keys hit me up. It's like, look, I got a new job. I got to get out of here at 8:30. I don't know what time zone you're in, but it's 8:30 Central Time here. So I do want to touch base on a few things here. Some of these questions I starred here from Hatters House 710, and I wanted to touch base on this here. And by the way, is if you guys got questions, I got answers. I pride myself on that. All questions are answered and anything goes on the live stream. I do want to touch base on this in a little more detail. Early in the game, in the first quarter, the score was 7-3. The Dallas had the lead, and I thought this was going to be a back and forth type of game. Detroit, it was 4th and I think 6 at the 6, and I was adamant that this was going to bite Detroit in the ass. They should have took the points. They should have gone ahead and made the score 7-6 because it's still a 1-point game, and you still have the opportunity to go for 2 if it's a back and forth type of game. I thought it was a massive mistake to go for it, especially on 4th and 6, 4th and 1, 4th and 2. Yeah, do that all day. But on a 4th and 6, first quarter of the game, to go for it, I thought was a massive mistake. And I was correct. It did bite him in the ass because with 2:45 left in the game, the score, instead of being 17-13, it would have been 17-16. Jared Goff and the Lions had all 3 timeouts remaining. They could have had 2, but I think they had 3. What happened is they were forced into trying to hurry up their offense and to change things up because they had to go ahead and get into the end zone because it was do or die, and they weren't going to get the ball back. At least it didn't look like they were going to get the ball back. But when Goff threw an interception on the first, I think it's the first play, Dallas threw a couple incompletions for some inexplicable reason, kicked a field goal, where if they run the ball 3 times and then kick a field goal, it's very unlikely that Detroit even gets down there. So if they wouldn't have kicked that field goal, the score would have been 17-16. Remember, Detroit was able to run the ball. So I think that if they make that change early in the game, as far as if Barnes gets that safety, I don't know about that. And by the way, Hatters House 710 said, I disagree because Lions lose. Here's the deal. Going for it on 4th and 6 early in the game, I think sets a bad example. I think it showed Lions players that, hey, we're not good enough. And the weird thing is that they looked like they were the better team. That game should have been won 19-17. And if you kick the field goal with 2:45 left, you have all 3 timeouts, you can run the ball. You're not forced into making throws. You win that game 19-17. And because you got overly aggressive, because you did all those trick plays, because you went for it, I think that cost you the game. And it sucks because the Lions, I was really, really, really surprised that the Lions we're going to come out of this game looking like the better team. I wasn't expecting that at all. I really thought the Lions would play hard. I knew that they were going to do some trickery. That's something that they do all the time. And you're right. The Lions always do trick plays. They go for it on fourth down a little more normal. I thought it was excessive against Dallas, and I didn't think it was necessary either, because I think they're good enough just to beat people up and to play. You did a phenomenal job stopping the run, but that's unfortunately kind of where you're at. Just a few announcements. I will go live Monday. I have a Black Monday special. Then I'm going to come on Tuesday, and I'm going to come on Friday. Sunday, I will be doing Chiefs Chargers live. I'll be on doing my live stream, even though it's going to be a lot of backups for both teams. I'm still going to do live stream. On the live stream, I'll answer all questions. Anything goes. Plus, I'll have updates. I also will pull up. I like pulling up DraftKings. A lot of my numbers come from DraftKings, but if you use a different gambling site, I'll be more than happy to use whatever site you use to go over some prop bets and some in-game bets, anything I can do to help you win some money. Most of you are finished with your fantasy league, but if you need some help with your fantasy football, I'm more than happy to go ahead and help out. So that's anything I can do. Do watch my picks video. The link's in the description. If there's nothing else, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to wrap it up early myself. By the way, I don't have the link in the description, but do check out the Back Talk Brothers. If you go to my community tab, the Luke G Field Review and the Back Talk Brothers are two channels that I support. I'm going to try my best to get Luke G to come on here in the very near future. So, guys, listen, I'll be back Friday, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. All my social media links are below. If you follow me on Facebook, I'm still having a problem with Facebook. I've been kicked off for copyright infringement. I'm not sure why. I'm working on trying to get that resolved. So, guys, thank you so much for joining. Have a great night. And Lucian, man, hope to see you again, brother, man. You guys have a good night.